what's that skill set that one needs to when teaching true beginners, especially given the linguistic distance? Like I said, I can easily do that with my Portuguese and Spanish speaking students, but let's say get an Arabic speaking student. How do I do that?
Yeah, those are really good questions. For language learning to happen, meaning has to be there. So when you or the students are saying something, when they're seeing text, when they're hearing language production, if the meaning isn't there, it's going to be pretty much meaningless. So you have to create meaning, and you have to connect the meaning with the words that they're seeing or hearing or saying. So it would be meaningless for you to choral, say this word, say that word. But if you were creating meaning, so, if I have a pen and I say pen and I have them say pen, and so they see this object, they hear the sound, they produce the sound, all of that is connecting that meaning with this object that they can see, and that's helpful. And so their brain is starting to connect those things. So you have to constantly make sure that meaning is present. So you can do that with what we call realia, things, items that you're using in the classroom. You can do it by body language. You can do it with images, but the meaning has to be there. And if you can create the meaning, then language learning can begin. If you're not creating enough meaning, it's going to be a really hard challenge. Other things that you would do as a teacher, you would slow your speech way down, and you might even kind of normal syntax and say communicate with words, single words. When babies are born, they get to a point where they say one word at a time and then a few words at a time. Some of that I think would be perfectly appropriate with true beginners because they're at the word level. Novice learners are going to be learning vocabulary, and helping them do that by creating meaning is going to make a difference. And of course, if they need to be learning to read and write at some point, depending on how important that is, you're going to be introducing the alphabet. You're going to start introducing the orthography. But that may come much later if the real focus immediately is listening and speaking.
Yeah, it's fascinating because normally we as teachers we want them to progress fast, right? And it can feel kind of frustrating working with true beginners since okay, they're not progressing as fast as I wanted to. It's kind of worrying, and there's always that anxiety. How does one deal with that? And how does one start teaching structures like I have a pen, or I want a pen, I'll go buy a pen? How does one do that?
Yeah, those are all great questions. I think a good teacher is going to have people using the language in ways that they can immediately. So I don't think we need to wait. But again, if they're really low proficiency, we're talking about vocabulary. So having them use vocabulary, maybe I hold up a box and they say what it is. This is a box. This is a pen. This is a pencil. This is my shirt. This is my book. Chair. So I might be pointing to things and they're saying the words. So that's in a sense that's using the language at the level that they're at. And I think it's important for them to start using the language immediately because they will feel the excitement of learning when they start using the language. It's like, wow, I am using the language. If you go into a class and you're not using the language and you're learning about the language, that can be really frustrating for the learner. So I think it's really important for the teacher to say they're going to be using the language in appropriate ways in 5 minutes, in 10 minutes. We're going to be using the language in appropriate ways. But it takes some creativity to think of the kinds of tasks where they would do that. Again, it might be at the lowest level. You might just be saying vocabulary. If a little bit higher level, they might come into the classroom and you incrementally get them starting to use something. You might explain it for, we're going to work on this structure. We're going to use these vocabulary words to do these things. And the explanation is very brief, and then you start doing it. And they get feedback as they go. And then you take what you just did and you build on it.